Hi, I'm Meg McCabe, and it is a pleasure to be speaking with Damien Mansell today. Damien is a senior lecturer of physical geography at the University of Exeter. He and his colleagues, led by Tim Lenton, have just completed their second round of a MOOC, a massive open online course dealing with climate change. And it was quite an ambitious undertaking, and congratulations to you on that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was a big project. It was quite good fun to produce, and it was great that we had lots of learners engaged from all around the world. So it
How
was a
many
good.
students this time?
The second time was a lot fewer students. I think it was around about 6,000 students the second round, but first year we ran it, we had about 16,000
Wow.
sign up. But we didn't really market it the second time round. We just ran it, and we sort of went with it. But yeah,
6,000 isn't too bad.
6,000 was the starting number. That's how many people enrolled on the course and how many people looked at the material. But it drops off, like with many online courses, it drops off over the course. People who actually finished it, it was around about just over 10 to 15% of the people who signed up, which is pretty consistent with most MOOCs and the number of students engaging.
Well, I made it through, and I really enjoyed it. I thought that your team did an excellent job producing the videos. I thought they were really well executed, and the the outline of the topics and the schemes, it was very ambitious. It was a big overview of climate change. And I wondered if you could tell me a little bit about why Exeter decided to enter into this venture with Future Learn, and a little bit about the design and the production process.
Yeah, certainly. So the university were interested in producing a MOOC. First off, because it's a new sort of innovative teaching tool, and the university is outlooking and seeking to engage in these opportunities. From a personal point of view, I wanted to get involved because it's a great way of teaching students from across the world, and it's free access material, so anyone could enroll. I guess benefits to the university were international recognition and marketing, and getting the research that the university is doing to more people. We decided to do the first MOOC on climate change because it's a big topic. There's a lot of debate around climate change, but also we have a lot of international experts and researchers in this area. The IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change document, which is used by lots of international organizations. Many of the authors of that were from the university here, so we wanted to utilize our expertise. Yeah, and we thought it would attract a lot of publicity.
How long did it take you? What was the process of designing it?
It pretty much took us the summer period,
Oh, that's not
from the design stage to putting it all together.
And how
But
many professors were involved? About 10?
yeah, there were I think 12 different professors. So that was the other thing that attracted us to climate change, is that it's multidisciplinary. So we had professors from my field of geography, environmental scientists, mathematicians, and bioscientists, social scientists. So it was a multidisciplinary project.
And does the university consider it a success?
Yeah, the university was happy with the enrollment and the amount of students who completed the course. But the feedback that we had from the learners has been really positive.
Good, good.
So that was a really good outcome. We were a little bit concerned that we might have a lot of skeptics sort of hijacking the course, but it didn't work out that way at all. We had a lot of our learners were sort of discussing and engaging in debate, and it actually turned out that a couple of the skeptics were were changed around to change their views on just presenting the science, presenting the facts, and they could make up their own minds about it. So it was really a successful course.
Who were your learners?
Yeah, the learners, we were hoping to aim more to undergraduates or prospective students, but it turned out that many of our learners were in the older age category, sort of silver surfers, I think they were referred to in in different documentation. Mostly from the UK, about 60% of the learners from the UK. And then from around the world. So yeah, mostly older, but also spread out between 15 to entry level sort of undergraduate year students.
Statistically, I've heard that most people that complete MOOCs have completed their undergraduate and are kind of lifelong learners, maybe people that have masters. And who are really self-disciplined academics in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on the reason for engaging in the course. I think there's a little bit too much emphasis on the completion rates of these MOOCs. A lot of people are getting benefits just by logging in, working on it for a few weeks, having their questions answered, and they've gained a lot from it. Because it's an 8-week course. And yeah, there's 2 or 3 hours each week to complete. So
I think that gets at the way I look at MOOCs is as valuable learning resources more than courses. This is why I agree with you that that the idea of going through it all is like, do you watch an entire PBS series? Well, maybe you do, but if you don't, you've still gained from learning from whatever you have gained
exactly.
or whatever you've taken in. So
yeah,
I mean, and I think that in a lot of ways, MOOCs hold similar values from and are unapologetically academic. You know, so that it offers the same kind of resource without the burden of having to be entertaining, because people have decided to participate in this for educational purposes.
Yeah, sure, and we can come at it from like a non-biased perspective. We're just presenting the facts on climate change, letting the learners make up their own minds. But one of the good things about the Future Learn platform, different to other MOOCs like Coursera, for example, is that it remains open. So once you've logged in, although the course runs for 8 weeks, that material stays online. Those learners can go back to it. So even if they haven't completed it within the 8 weeks, they can still access that material. They can watch the videos again and again if they haven't completed it within that 8-week time frame. So.
And how much did Future Learn help you in the production?
Minimal help. We did it all here at the University of Exeter.
Excellent film crew and nice direction, and I thought there was a good balance between slides and graphics and people walking around in environments.
Yeah, that was something that we really wanted to sort of make unique for our MOOC, is to shoot the videos around the Exeter campus, but also in the town there. So prospective students maybe could get an idea of Exeter and the surroundings, because we've got a really beautiful campus
You do.
here.
Very.
And it sort of made it a bit different than just having sort of a talking head in front of a screen, as we are now, maybe, but or a lecture theatre.
Yeah. The format of most MOOCs, and climate change included, is that most of the information is presented through short videos, and then there's supplemental articles, websites. The student comprehension is demonstrated through short multiple choice quizzes, and then students are invited to do kind of open-ended reflection, participation, and discussion board. That's over 8 weeks. That's the general format. How does this compare to your face-to-face teaching, your approach?
So how does it compare to our teaching on campus?
Or yours personally?
Yeah, quite different, I suppose, because here at Exeter we have structured lectures, a few hours contact, and then we set a lot of reading, reflective exercises. And I spend a lot of time in the labs on computer exercises. So a lot of face-to-face contact with the students. But having done the MOOC, I'm sort of encouraged more to produce videos and actually allow learners to engage in the material at their own pace. I think that's one of the great things about online learning is that students can listen, watch, re-watch, pause, and go through it at their own pace. So I am doing a lot more of that now, sort of flipping the classroom approach to learning and teaching.
So how are you using the face-to-face time?
Face-to-face time, traditional lectures. Like still, there's still a lot of those going on, and that's a really good way to teach initial content. But also, we're using those face-to-face times for discussions, debates, answering questions, setting tests, reflecting on some of the learning that we've done as well.
One of the things that's a real challenge in a course with 6,000 students is giving any kind of feedback or work with any of the students' responses. You handled that this time with a weekly feedback session. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you're right. That was a big challenge, and we decided to tackle it by collating common questions or key questions throughout the week and then producing a feedback video. So we had 3 course facilitators this time around, which were undergraduate students here at Exeter on related degrees, and we recruited those students to monitor the discussions, the reflective exercises, the blogs, to compile the questions, and then they would fire them at us whilst we were being filmed, so we could provide answers to some of the most common questions or some of the key questions that had come up that week. And we tried to keep those down to less than 10 minutes, which was a bit of a challenge because we can always talk more about these topics. But the feedback videos are really positive. Students like to actually feel a bit more involved in the course. And it sort of encouraged people as well to stick with it like week on week, so that the collaboration exercises, the reflective or the group exercises were being done at the same time by a group of students from around the world, rather than just coming at it at a different time of the course.
So much about climate change is subjective, and what are people doing with it, and politically, and all of those ramifications. If you were going to teach this class live and use the videos, how might you, how would you foresee another teacher using this material in a more interactive way that had more input from the students? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. So the social challenges for climate change is a really big issue. And Tim Lenton and I are physical scientists. We're looking at impacts of climate change and feeding that forward. But from learners trying to say, okay, what can we do with this information? We know that climate change is having an impact. What can we do? It can really, like you say, cause a great debate. And I guess one of the things that you could explore in a group session is maybe thinking about climate change sort of attribution, sort of thinking about who's responsible for climate change, and you could think about ways of setting not subjective but more strategic sort of measures. So emissions per country, for example, we know that China is at the highest emissions, but then you can say, well, actually, let's stop there and look at emissions per person, in which case the USA would then be at the top of the list. Well, then you could say, well, actually, let's look at emissions for manufacturing, which would then jump back to China. But then you could say, well, actually, let's look at emissions based on consumption, and most of that manufacturing is then going around to the Western world anyway. So there's that could be a huge debate on attribution and who's responsible and what we can do collectively. And there are no easy answers, and that's why a discussion, like you say, you could really benefit from a really big group discussion, but there wasn't real scope for that in the course, and we were trying to streamline it towards conveying the facts of climate change, letting learners make up their own minds, and doing it that way.
And I found that there was a lot of comments to that effect on the discussion boards, but it's very difficult without a facilitator on the discussion boards. You mentioned that the graduates were acting as facilitators. Could you describe a little bit about their roles?
Yeah, so the facilitators monitored the forums. So there were forums, threads on the platform where the learners were posting questions or posting links or follow-up issues relating to the material. So the facilitators would, if they knew the answer, if it was a simple question, the facilitator could post an answer to that question. Or it might be posting resources, so sending a link to where the learner could get that information from if they wanted to. Or if they didn't know the answer, then they would email or contact myself or one of the other lecturers or professors on the course, and they would either provide an answer to the facilitator to post, or we would give the answer in the feedback video or blog about it. So at the end of each week, Tim Lenton was writing a blog about some of the key issues that had come up in that week.
It wasn't obvious to me who the facilitators were in the discussions. How would I look for the facilitator? Are they noted in any particular way, or is there any highlight of who the facilitator is within the discussion board? I couldn't find their contributions.
The Future Learn platform was at the stage is quite limited in the forums, but the name for each facilitator has a facilitator after their name on the course. They were introduced in the introduction, the first feedback video, and these were undergraduate students. We had 3 undergraduate students and 1 master's students, 3 in geography and 1 in biosciences.
It would be interesting to take the MOOC model and take an army of teaching assistants, of doctorate, and really give them give them a little course in facilitating effectively what motivates students, and divide up little pods of people and really see if that would help for retention, and really like call students by name and ask them to respond to each other, and really try to get a network of discussion going, because it feels to me that that's the one piece that is really difficult to handle within Scale, is to keep people motivated by having their contribution count.
Yeah,
and I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges I see in this whole puzzle.
We were aware of this, and so we had a blog reel each week. So we were encouraging learners to reflect on some of the material that they'd learned, maybe with some answering some of the questions that we posed ourselves, and the students would put their blogs on the threads, or they'd tweet them or put them on Facebook. And the facilitators, their other role was to look at these blogs and then to highlight the best ones, and we would then put them on our blog reel. So at the end of the week, we'd say, have a look at some of the most interesting blogs from this week.
And how did that go?
Yeah, I think that was to try and kind of encourage the people who were spending a lot of time on these blogs, because there was some amazing stuff being produced. But it's hard then to know how many people are looking at these material, and whether or not that is actually motivating them to do it. Yeah, it is.
But at the end of the day, it has a different. There's a different criteria, because yours is not to measure what people do with it, but to offer it.
Exactly. Yeah. So some of the learners would just look and browse at the material and not engage in the reflective or the collaborative or the browse exercises, and that's fine. They're just gaining personal understanding. But it's a shame, really, because I think one of the benefits of the MOOC is this, like you say, this community actually exchanging ideas and examples, case studies from around the world.
And I feel like that piece hasn't yet been discovered yet. How really
Yeah.
to really tease out the people who are motivated to get involved and to sign up for this level of, interaction. If there is going to be 25 or 30 people in a section or something, if they wanted to self-select for that, it may be something interesting. Because I feel like there's so much good material that is being produced, and just in terms of the learner, and because I've taken so many of these, is that I have fractions of ideas that are floating around in my head that had I used it, had I talked to somebody about it, I think I would own it. But because I watched it and I thought, oh, that's interesting, and then I turned around to describe what I was seeing, and I couldn't remember. It's just because I didn't use it, and I didn't attach it to anything within my own life.
Yeah, yeah, it's that reflective learning which is key. And in the course, we did have a few sort of questions where we say, right, for example, the first week we've got weather and climate. Provide an example for your location. What's the difference between weather? What's the difference between climate? And learners engaged in that. But it was when you've got so many students on the course, it's really just hard to know out of the proportion who's engaging and how many people are seeing this. But
And I think it will be interesting if there's any way to track who uses these materials, because I could see if I were teaching any number of courses that as a unit, the individual videos stand alone.
Yeah, I've used those in my teaching at Exeter. For my week on the cryosphere, I showed that in my the first lecture of my third year course. This is sort of an introduction. Pick out the key points. Why did I set it out like this? And I gave it to the students and said, come up with alternative examples to the ones I've used in the video. And it's by producing the material for the MOOC learners, like a short 10-minute slice of a really big topic. It helps my students think about, well, how did I go about narrowing that down, and then I try to do the opposite for my students, try and get them to blow it up and add all the other bits and pieces which could tie it all in together. So it's quite useful for that.
Are you planning on teaching this again, this course?
We're talking about perhaps resting it for a year and then launching it again with a bit more of a marketing push, or we're also thinking about running it on a different MOOC platform, get more international students involved rather than FutureLearn, which is a UK-based platform. So that's still to be decided.
And how much time does it take for you personally teaching the MOOC during the 8 weeks?
Personally, the delivery of the MOOC is quite a small contribution, maybe about an hour a week to prepare, sort of answer a few questions on the platform, and then get ready for the feedback video. But for the week that I was the key lecturer, I'd spend a few more hours on the platform answering questions, and mostly because I'd be interested to see what people are saying about it as well. But no, the time for the MOOC, the time and the effort spent is mostly in the production, putting all that material together. Yeah, that was.
If you were going to do this particular MOOC again, what changes would you make?
I think you raised a good point in terms of trying to encourage a bit more discussion and collaboration with some of the key questions surrounding climate change. Towards the end of the course, we look at adaptation and mitigation. I think we should probably spend a lot more time looking at alternatives or different situations. I think most of the examples are UK-based or developed countries. It'd be interesting to sort of think about what other people around the world could be doing or are doing. That's something we might develop. I think the other thing with the attention of the MOOCs is there's far too much emphasis on the video delivery element of the MOOC. a lot of people, when they're talking about MOOCs, we've spent a lot of time talking about the videos. And we call that when we put together our MOOC each week, we made sure that the videos were no longer or around about 10 minutes long because of student engagement, student interest just waving. But we made sure that wasn't just the only material that was being taken part. Like you said, we have this delivered element of the watching the video, but also there's reading of the material. We have reflective, collaborative, and assessment exercises in each week as well to sort of accommodate different learning styles and different levels of engagement. But by no means is it what we do when we're teaching our students here at Exeter, and also it's not accredited at all to any of our modules. Some of our students take it as a sort of a revision exercise or to get involved and discuss with students around the world, but at the moment it's not a accredited module.
I think of MOOCs as a engaging interactive textbook that is free to the public and is a resource for teachers everywhere and is a resource. And I think that it's a misnomer in a way to call it a course. I wish they would call it something like massive open online learning resources, or which is, because I feel like the idea of it being a course is why the need for the quizzes and the need for the how many people completed this. I mean, they're the wrong line of questions.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because I think that it has its own value, but it should be seen in the light of resource.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, because it's the second time we ran it, we had a few people, I think, sign up to it again. Maybe because they didn't complete the first time round, or they wanted to engage in some of the changes that we made. So it's like an evolving resource, and it's up to date, rather than the textbook analogy, which can go out of date. The thing is, with a MOOC, it can be refreshed, it can be updated.
And I believe that as teachers have more ability to self-create and produce these things, we can pick and choose and create our own for our courses, and that's really the way it will evolve. So that we'll have our own. And so way back when, we used to have course packs, and now we'll have our own video library, which will come from different sources, and with different questions, and it would all. And we as the teachers will be more like pointing out the constellation and the connection among these things. What was the changes between the first iteration and the second iteration? What was the?
We actually removed some material. We thought the first run there was too much material. We were asking too much of our students. The feedback was it's taking too long each week. So we tried to streamline it a little bit. The first run, we didn't set a time limit on the feedback videos. We sat in the room, we had the facilitators asking questions. In this case, the first run, it was PhD students. And we would just sit and discuss them with a whiteboard, answering questions, and in some cases an hour ran by. So the feedback we got from the platform was that the videos needed to be shorter. Engagement, students don't want to look at a video which is an hour long. So we had to really streamline it and make sure that we were keeping them to around about 10 minutes long, the videos. We reduced the amount of questions. The first run I tried to write some quite contentious questions because I wasn't interested in assessing the students. Like you just said, it's not about getting a credit at the end. I wanted to use the questions to get students to think and be critical about the material, so I purposefully put in some contentious questions, and some students didn't like that. They thought it was a bit they felt like we were trying to trick them, or they really were concerned about not getting 100% in these. And I was sort of trying to say it doesn't matter. We're here to get you to think about it, and so we made it a bit more clear cut with the questions.
Well, let's see. I guess, what is your takeaway from all of this as far as the experience? What did you gain from it?
what did I gain from it? It's actually impacted my teaching here at Exeter. I use online material a lot more with teaching outside of the classroom. So more of a blended approach to my teaching. So not just lecturing, talking to the students in and outside of the lecture theatre and seminars, but actually producing videos and directing them to that so they can learn beyond the classroom and beyond the contact time that we have timetabled. That's changed the way I think about how I teach and how students learn, which is positive. Um, the main thing that is great about the MOOC is that tried to educate people from around the world. They got free insight into some of the research that's going on in Exeter, and hopefully developed an understanding of climate change, challenges and solutions. So how we can then take that information and start making some change. Hopefully some positive changes, because we need to make some big unprecedented change if we're going to start to see a drop in global temperature forecasts and sea level rise forecasts.
Well, that's a wonderful way to conclude.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Damien, for sharing your time with me today. I really appreciate it, and best of luck to you and your team.